The first lining technique that we are going to be talking about is called running the tip or floating the needle, whatever you want to call it. It is basically just using the tip of the needle to pull your line. This type of lining is great for precision. You can see your needle clearly, but not only that, you can see your stencil line clearly, so you have a clear path from A to B. Now, running the tip is great for when you are sculpting a line, more on that shortly, or doing any touch-ups to lines that may not be as solid as you first wanted. However, running the tip does have its drawback. It's really important that when you are doing this technique, you keep as consistent as possible. Hand speed needs to be consistent. The needle depth needs to be consistent. If you are running a line and you start at a certain depth and then you just go slightly deeper and then come back up to the depth that you started at, you are going to see that in the line. It will make your line look thin, then fat, then back to thin because of the taper of the needle. Now, if you do want to run off the tip of the needle, I always recommend a stroke length of 3.5 and above, depending on the amount of needle hang that you are wanting. If you are using a shorter stroke machine and you like a lot of needle hang, that needle is not going to come back far enough into the tube to collect pigment to push it back out. Therefore, you're going to find yourself dipping constantly. Next up, we have riding the tube. This is my preferred method for any beginner tattoo artist. Now, riding the tube is the exact opposite to riding the tip. Rather than have a longer needle hang, you have a shorter needle hang. And because you have a shorter needle hang, you have more control over the depth that you are going. The reason this is because you are placing the entire needle and cart tip on the skin and then pulling your line. If you are worried about blowouts, this will reduce your risk massively. Now, this isn't foolproof, so don't be mistaken. You can still blow out, so you do still need to have the correct hand speed and the correct voltage. If you're a tattooist with a shaky hand, this will also help and aid with that stability. Now, although you do have more stability, it won't always take out the amount of shake that you may have. If you are wanting to reduce shake in your lines, the best thing to do is up the line weight. Anything over a 7 is generally going to be your friend. Now, the drawback to this, obviously you have the stability, but you do not have the precision. Now, the type of needles that you use can help. Different brands have different tips. Some offer a diamond shape, some offer a rounder tip. It all depends, it's all personal preference, but experiment with needles if you are going to do this. Now on to what we mentioned earlier, sculpting lines. Now, for sculpting lines, I do like to have the precision of a longer hang riding that tip. Sculpting a line is any line, in my opinion, that isn't a single pass. Some will say that sculpting a line is putting a line next to another line and making a thicker line, yada yada. For me, I take a different view. Sculpting a line isn't just building different line weights, it's also building up any line, even single lines. Line sculpting is great if you aren't comfortable with a single pass line. Maybe the line has a bend and your confidence just isn't there to do it. Sculpting that bend can help. Sculpting lines takes away the feeling of lining and brings in the feeling of more shading, which am I right in saying that you was or still are more comfortable while shading than lining. Sculpting is great if your lines taper off also. Maybe they start fat and then they go to a nice thin point. You would sculpt the line. Sculpting would also come in handy if you wanted to touch up any line without running the line again. Now, when I am sculpting, I will generally bring my voltage down just slightly. This isn't a must, but it helps with building up slower. However, a sculpted line is never ever going to look as good or as clean as a single pass line. Now, you can take all these 3 techniques and use them all. I use them all. Or you may prefer one over the other. You may only use one and sack the rest off. That's absolutely fine. However you tattoo, more importantly, however you tattoo comfortably is the best. But a little tip when you are lining will be to have your machine upright. Do not have your machine on an angle. Having your machine upright will bring a more consistent line because you are hitting that dermis layer all the time. And a bonus tip for anyone that likes to do long lines, I've been using this for quite a while now. If you place a little bit of pigment, a little blob of pigment in your line's path, start the line. As you start to run out of pigment, you will run over that blob, the machine will suck it up and refill your machine so you are able to continue the line. This was definitely more of a beginner video, so I do apologise to the advanced artists out there if you have watched this video. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't, but if you did learn something, please consider subscribing to the channel. Do not forget to turn on notifications to get notified every time I upload a new video. But guys, I'll see you later. Muchest love, as always. See you in the next one. Peace out. Muchest love. I've said that. Muchest love. I've said it again. It's just because I love you so much.